Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Great. How are you today? Great, I hope. Nearing the end of the COP. Thank you all for being here, for joining us today at the side event Mangroves and NDCs, Scaling Up Implementation for People, Nature, and Climate. My name is Annalise Zimmer, and I work at the Pew Charitable Trust on the Advancing Coastal Wetlands Conservation team. And we at Pew are thrilled to invite you here today, or to welcome you here today, on behalf of our partners of the Mangrove Breakthrough NDC Task Force, which include the Food and Agriculture Organization of the UN, the UN High-Level Champions Team, the Nature Conservancy, and our pavilion hosts, the NDC Partnership, amongst many others. So quickly, want to explain a little bit of background about the Mangrove Breakthrough NDC Task Force. We are a community of mangrove policy and science experts that provide technical support to governments that have endorsed the Mangrove Breakthrough. There are now 30 governments that have endorsed the Mangrove Breakthrough, and our goal as the NDC Task Force is to bring those endorsements to policy action by supporting the development and implementation of mangrove-positive NDCs to the Paris Agreement. So the organizations you see here on this screen, and there are many of them here in the room, thank you for being here, have been integral in the progress of the NDC Task Force and for bringing us here together with our amazing speakers that we will have today. So thank you to those who have helped out and who are represented here on the screen. So I'm very excited today. We have convened a wonderful group of speakers, government representation, UN representation, and representation from the NDC Task Force and the NDC Partnership to speak to us today about how mangrove ecosystems can be included in nationally determined contributions to the Paris Agreement, and to learn more about how governments have progressed in implementing those targets that they submitted as part of their first NDCs and second NDCs, and now are preparing for the NDC 3.0 cycle. So I'm very happy to introduce today our opening speaker and moderator for today's event, Ms. Amy Duchel. She is a Senior Forestry Officer and Team Leader of Climate Change and Resilience at FAO. And Amy, thank you for being here. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Annalise, for having FAO here, the Food and Agriculture Organization of the UN. And we've been very happy to be able to engage more actively with the Mangrove Breakthrough, both on the side of fisheries through our colleague Taru Bari, who many of you may know, but then also more recently on the forestry side and forested mangroves through Maria Nutinen and other colleagues. And FAO has quite a big portfolio of work on mangroves. Last year, many of you may have seen that we released the report, The World's Mangroves 2020, and that was really a comprehensive survey examining global and regional extent of mangrove forests and analyzing changes. And that's really based on country reported data. And so I think that's something that's really complementary to a lot of the global data sets because, we know that national policies are made on official data. And so it's really important to somehow integrate the nationally reported data with some of these more global data sets. And more recently, we've been partnering with the Center for International Forestry Research, CIFOR, on understanding the role of mangroves in national climate policies and plans, both for mitigation and adaptation. And with that, I would like to introduce our framing presentation, Dr. Daniel Murdiarso, who many of you will know. He's a principal scientist at CIFOR, based in Indonesia, one of the premier researchers on the issue of blue carbon, and he's here today to provide an overview of assessment of mangroves in selected countries, climate change adaptation and mitigation policy instruments. So Daniel, over to you.
Apologize for not being able to be here in person. I would like to present our collaborative work with FAO on the assessment of mangroves' role in selected countries' climate change adaptation and mitigation policy instruments. But before that, I would like to introduce my CIFOR-ICRAF team. Myself, Daniel Murdiarso, based in Bogor. We have Rupesh Bhumia, based in Sri Lanka, Saurya Patel in India, and Arimatea Ximenez in Brazil. We selected 12 countries, 4 in Latin America, 1 in Africa, 6 in the Asia Pacific, and Australia. They have different socioeconomic structure and political system, of course. But the area they cover ranges between 300,000 to 3 million hectares. The method we use, we are looking at the NDC and National Action Plan for Adaptation documents submitted in the UNFCCC Secretariat, but also reviewing some 800 literature concerning the environmental challenges that mangrove has, and also policy responses to adaptation and mitigation. In the literature, we do not differentiate between coastal wetland, mangrove, or blue carbon. So all information related to this ecosystem will be studied. In this literature, we found lots of elements, properties, and attributes. That's why we need to group or cluster them. That is the way mangrove is governed and local community are engaged. Very wide range across these countries, so that grouping need to be understood as proxy of the situation. We also trying to cluster the way adaptation and mitigation are integrated in the planning as well as implementation. So in this analysis, we found Malaysia and Brazil in the first cluster, where strong engagement with community and governance system are found, and also high integration of adaptation and mitigation. The second cluster consists of Indonesia, Australia, and Nigeria. Although the integration of adaptation and mitigation are quite clear, but the engagement with local community are weak. In the third cluster, we found India, PNG, Bangladesh, and Myanmar, with strong community engagement but relatively less integrated in terms of adaptation and mitigation. The last cluster consists of Cuba, Mexico, and Venezuela. These countries have a lot to do in terms of improving the engagement with local community and governance systems, and also in integrating mitigation and adaptation measures. One of the examples of integrating adaptation measures is how to promote mangrove in accreting sediment to cope with sea level rise. They are, of course, site-specific and cannot be generally implemented or adopted in every country. But there is a strong evidence that historically mangrove can turn the tide. For countries like Malaysia and Brazil, remember those two countries on the top right-hand cluster, they have the opportunity to explore the co-benefits from biodiversity. But species should be locally found, not introduced or exotic. If countries plan to mainstream mangrove in the NDC, CIFOR-ICRAF offers a transformative partnership platform called Blue Carbon Deck please visit the website as written in the link below. The Blue Carbon Deck will be able to facilitate the integration of adaptation and mitigation at national level, but also facilitate the development of blue carbon project, which will benefit biodiversity and local community engagement. As a take-home message, let's understand that adaptation and mitigation of climate change should have equal footing. Certainly, restoring degraded mangrove should consider the coastal resilience as well as the biodiversity conservation. Countries in different clusters that we analyze will have different opportunity or scenarios to improve the integration of adaptation mitigation and to improve the governance systems. It is also suggested that countries establish a regional partnership to be able to learn from each other. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Daniel, and especially for highlighting that these synergies between adaptation and mitigation, which all of us who work on ecosystem-based approaches know that there is no separation between the two, in fact, and this has been a false separation, and including with the linkages to biodiversity. So I would like to now turn over to our panel discussion, and I'll call up 4 panelists. As Annalise said, this is really quite a stellar group of representatives with a wide range of geographical and expert diversity. So first of all, Ms. Gabriela Santamaria. She is a climate change analyst from the Ministry of Environment from Panama. If you could just come up and take one of these chairs. I'll sit here so you can take any of the others. Mr. Andrew Koriakula, the ocean specialist from the Ministry of Environment and Climate Change from Fiji. Pak Irwan Asad, the Director of Adaptation from the Directorate of Climate Change in Indonesia. Pak, please. And Mr. Diego Hernandez, from the Technical Director from Sao Paulo State Foundation for Forest Conservation and Production in Brazil. Great, and for those, of course we have a full room because this is an event about mangroves, and every event about mangroves fills up. So there are seats in the front for those who are standing. I see 2 here, there's a few on the side, so please come in, don't be shy. And I'll be sitting up here, so there is space. Okay. So let's start with Gabriela. Yeah. Gabriela, in June, Panama submitted a new NDC that includes clear and ambitious goals for the conservation of coastal ecosystems, including mangroves. Can you tell us more about those NDC targets for mangrove conservation and about how Panama is planning to implement those targets?
Well, hi to everyone. Good evening. Thank you so much for the invitation to this panel. It is always so important for us, for Panama, to integrate with other countries and interchange experiences. Well, to answer your question, Panama's updated NDC includes ambitious targets in mangrove conservation under its Natural Pledge initiative. Our key commitments in the NDC are the restoration and expansion. By 2028, Panama aims to increase and restore 1,800 hectares of mangrove, contributing significantly to our biodiversity and climate resilience. Also, our protection area integration, at least 50% of our nation's mangrove ecosystem are to integrate it into a national system of protected areas by 2026. By 2028, with sufficient external financial support, Panama seeks to achieve the effective protection and management of at least 50% of all these ecosystems. Also, we have policies and planning enhancements, like updating and strengthening our National Wetlands Action Plan by 2027, completing a national inventory of coastal wetlands, including an assessment of biodiversity and ecosystem services by 2030, and mapping peatland ecosystems and assessing carbon stocks by 2027. To implement all these targets, Panama is leveraging international partnerships, such as a collaboration with Pew Trust under ProCari Plus project. This collaboration focused on capacity building, policy development, and enhancing conditions for sustainable blue economic investments. The country is also emphasizing integrate these goals into broader international frameworks, reinforcing its leadership in marine and coastal conservations.
Thank you so much, Gabriela. And you know, Panama is such a leader at this COP, including with the announcement of the G0 Forum at the very beginning, which is, you know, a group of carbon negative countries. And a lot of what you were just describing is the basis for carbon negativity in these countries, these serious ecosystem-based approaches. So thanks so much for sharing that. So over to Fiji for the next question. So in your 2020 NDC, Fiji's government communicates the importance of coastal ecosystems, including mangroves, for biodiversity conservation, fisheries, and climate change mitigation. And so since the submission of that NDC, what policies has Fiji enacted to further conserve the country's mangrove ecosystems?
Yes, thank you very much, moderator. Puluvinaka, to the panelists and to everyone this event. Thank you for inviting Fiji to be part of this event. To answer your question, Fiji's mangroves are a critical natural asset providing ecological, economic, and climate resilience benefits. The coverage of estimated 49,000 hectares of mangroves in Fiji plays a crucial role in the nation's pursuit of its NDC commitment, as outlined in the Paris Agreement. Mangrove play a dual role in mitigating climate change by reducing greenhouse gas emissions and adapting to the climate change impacts, making them a cornerstone of Fiji's sustainable development and resilient strategy. As an island nation, home to vibrant coastal ecosystems and communities, Fiji recognizes the value of protecting, conserving, and restoring coastal blue carbon habitats for climate adaptation, resilience, and mitigation in many of its commitments and national policies, and is actively engaged in programs to support national climate actions and livelihoods, mangrove mapping, and blue carbon accounting. In its updated NDC, Fiji commits to prioritizing the conservation and protection of its marine biodiversity and critical ocean ecosystems, including enhancement of mangroves. Fiji's NDC also calls for the conservation of natural environment and biodiversity wealth, enabling sustainable long-term provision of ecosystem services, including carbon sequestration potential, of which mangroves plays an important role. In addition, Fiji's low-emission development strategy identifies a coastal blue carbon habitat as a key component for Fiji's mitigation potential, and blue carbon habitats will play a role in achieving Fiji's net zero carbon emissions goals laid out in our Climate Change Act of 2021. Currently, Fiji is developing a national carbon market strategy roadmap, including a carbon rights assessment and benefit sharing analysis, a potential blue carbon trading pathways, and this roadmap aims to help meet Fiji's 2050 net zero strategy, develop safeguards, and enable locally led activities relating to mangroves. Fiji also has numerous mangrove projects underway to enhance coastal community livelihoods, including mangrove and coral reef restoration, hybrid seawall projects with seawalls that combine mangroves and traditional infrastructure approaches to build resilience. Mangroves are indispensable to Fiji's efforts to meet its NDC commitments. They provide a cost-effective and sustainable way to reduce emissions, enhance carbon sequestration, and protect against climate impacts. By scaling up the mangrove conservation and restoration, Fiji not only strengthened its climate resilience, but also sets an example for other small island developing states in integrating nature-based solutions in national climate strategies. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Andrew. And it's interesting, when we were developing this analysis with CIFOR that Pak Daniel presented, at first that we were limiting it to the countries with the largest area of mangrove forests. But then we realized, no, actually for small island developing states that may not have the biggest area when you're comparing globally, but the importance of mangroves is probably exponentially higher, in fact, for these economies. So thank you so much for sharing. Over now to Indonesia and Pak Irawan. Indonesia includes integrated mangrove management as an adaptation action in the latest NDC. And what have been the key opportunities and challenges that you see for Indonesia with mangroves in the new NDC and its implementation?
Yeah, first, thank you for inviting us, coming to this event. And yeah, we'll talk about mangroves. Daniel's already mentioned that their numbers of mangroves is kind of, how do you call that one? Because they are adaptation and mitigation, and really, really attached to the climate change. People and community that living in the mangroves area are impacted by the climate change. And if they're planting the mangroves with sustainable way, they will survive with this kind of the hazard, sea level rise, and etc. In Indonesia, there are 3.4 million hectares of mangroves. 60% are in good condition, and part of them are in the degraded mangroves. That's why in our NDCs, since the first NDCs, we put the mangrove in part of our NDCs. We put it in adaptation context because I'm the director of adaptation. So they put mangroves is in the ecosystem and landscape aspect. And there are always two parts on that one. The first one is implementing the integrated management, because mangrove, you cannot treat mangrove as single ecosystem, isn't it? Because they are interlinked between coral reefs and hinterland. The second one is how to restore the one that already damaged. In Indonesia, as Pak Daniel said, that we try to integrate this one and become a mainstreaming in the policy actions. Almost 6 ministries working within mangroves. Ministry of Environment and Forestry. We also we do have special agencies to work with mangroves. Agency for mangrove and peatland restoration. And we aim in this year, 600,000 mangroves will be restored in these whole countries. And talking about mangroves, we also have a community we integrated these concepts, not only running the project, that big project, but we run a project in the locally led adaptation program in the field. We call that one ProClim, Program Kampung Iklim, where people in the field, in the village, working with mangroves, because they are the frontliners of these activities. They are the frontliners of the climate change. And we run that one. There are more than 12,000 villages now. I think 10% of them are related to mangroves because they are in the coastal zone, and we are happy for that. And we are in here in the COP26. 29.
Yes, okay.
There are so many COPs, and there are so many COPs we attend, and we are confused now the number. Because this mangrove is it's related to CBD, isn't it? Because CBD, biodiversity, mangroves, they are interlinked. So we hope that in this COP that we come up with this strategy and policies to how to improve, how to restore our mangrove in the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vak, for that. I really appreciate how you talked about the cross-sectoral nature of the work and how you're bringing together multiple ministries. And I have to say, even with our experience at FAO with mangrove work, it's been an area that's allowed us to bring in many sectoral colleagues from fisheries, agriculture, forestry. And so it's really quite an interesting ecosystem to think about the need for various players to come in at the same time. So now over to Diego. You're coming from a subnational perspective, which is quite interesting. And if you could talk about the role of Sao Paulo State Foundation for Forest Conservation and Production in implementing Brazil's mangrove strategies, such as the Pro-Mangazal and the country's new NDC. What are the opportunities and challenges of mangrove management and policy at a subnational level?
Thank you, Amy. Thank you all. Looking my colleagues here, all the panelists in a national level, when we are talking about the subnational government looking for the mangroves areas in a state level, we need to go to practice. We need to go to efforts that we executed. And we are trying to make local communities the most important things when we are trying to manage the mangrove area. So in São Paulo State, we have, since 1986, the Forest Foundation was established by the state government. Our institution supports, promotes, and implements integrated actions aimed in environmental conservation, biodiversity protection, sustainable development, the recovery of degraded areas, and ecological restoration as well. We established partnerships with local and government agencies and the private sector too, because we are responsible to manage the conservation units of São Paulo State. And the Forest Foundation oversees 3 million hectares of natural vegetation and 1 million hectares of marine environment, all of these managed by conservation units across the state. So we are talking about 24 million, we are talking about 24,000 hectares and in Forest Foundation managed by us. This represents 2% of the mangroves in Brazil. Okay, so we are a small state, but when we talk about Brazil, that's the second country in the world with most mangrove areas. This represents a lot, and we think that the strategy of São Paulo State reflects the leverage innovative financing mechanisms as a PAS program that we are implementing for local communities and local fishermen, especially for oyster collectors, and this ensure a robust community participation with them. Our monitoring and the strategy of the state is aiming in monitoring and restoration. First, in monitoring, we invest and develop the Mangroves São Paulo protocol, drawing the same methodologies than from CIFOR. So thank you, Danielle, for the presentation. And it's look to see São Paulo in the Brazil's in the better side of the cluster from adaptation and mitigation. So, but we need challenges. That there's another challenges in governance and multi-level governance to be reached. We work with the city, so the sampling, with the inventory, we're doing our inventory from the blue carbon, so we work for the city governments, incorporate the measurements of both above ground and below ground carbon. There's a special aspect in this project that is environmental education, because most of people in Brazil that lives in mangroves don't know the species, don't know how this exotic species is becoming a problem, an increasing problem in the mangroves in São Paulo. So we have two major problems in exotic species. One of them is the bioinvasive species of tree in the mangroves, the soneratia. It's a tree that becomes a problem in São Paulo because of the mangroves are very near the port area, the port of Santos. So this even the soneratia and the oyster, the exotic oyster Sacostra cuculata, are both species that came from the ballast, water ballast from ships, and we are doing. We are trying to prioritize the control of this bioinvasion as fast as we can, because both species are very, very aggressive in terms of bioinvasion. So, and we can see another aspect of this project is environmental education. As I said, people who lives very near to the mangroves needs to know better, and we work with schools, teachers, and students in a project. It's a very kindly name. It's there's a mangrove in my backyard, or there's a mangrove in my garden, which we make capacity building with teachers and explain about the crabs, reproductive cycle, about the oyster aspect in pollution as indicator, biological indicator in pollution. So it's very important to work with schools. We are now reaching more than 200 teachers and schools. This represents 6 cities in the coast zone of São Paulo, which for us is a lot. Okay, no problem. So, and closing, we do the cleanups of the mangroves in São Paulo. We do this by a PAS program with the local fishermen, and we pay for the garbage that they take when they are fishing, and we pay this in a voucher that can be exchangeable for food in the markets. So we think this is both environmental strategy and a social importance with the local fishermen. Next one, please. And this is a few photos from them. And just to close, São Paulo's mangrove conservation and restoration efforts highlight how local governments and actions can be paired with global expertise and collaboration. We think that we can achieve transformative outcomes when the governance is established between national and subnational level. And working together with organizations, we have the opportunity to create this case study. So it's very good to present this to you, and we hope to look forward for exploring how shared expertise and goals can align to deliver impactful solutions. Thank you.
Great. No, thank you so much. And thanks for really highlighting this community level interaction, which I think, of course, is absolutely complementary to the national policy frameworks that need to be in place. So I'll just ask one more question to each of the panelists, and if you could be super brief, so kind of just a takeaway so that everybody can remember one or two key elements from your experience, your context, that need to be in place for really leveraging mangroves in climate action. So just maximum 2, but really brief. Yep.
Well, I think something really important is that we can appreciate the importance of mangrove. Like, for example, I feel like in our country, like, people really don't know the importance of it, like the natural importance of it, and how we can, it help us to preserve our biodiversity and make climate resilience and that stuff. So I think, as our Brazil colleague says, like, capacity building is so important, like, not only for the technical people in the government, but also to the population and to preserve our nature. Like, I feel when we talk about preservation of nature, we only think in trees, like forest, but we don't really think about mangrove and how important they are. So I think that is a key point in our preservation plans and everything. And I feel like that's a starting point. So yeah,
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Pakirawan?
Yeah, 2 things. That first is regulation. We have to have the right regulation and mainstreaming all of the regulation to protect our mangroves. That's the key on the government level. The second one is the collaboration. You cannot work for mangroves only government alone or community alone. You have to work together. We invite numbers of public entrepreneur, academia, and etc. to work with our mangrove, including our colleagues from JICA over there. Yeah, we have a project with JICA, long-term project now, and also with CIFOR and etc. So invite all of the parties to work together. Otherwise, it is so hard for us because it's very fast and very some of the remote area. So that's why collaboration and coordination is really important. Thank you.
Fantastic. Andrew, from Fiji's perspective?
Just very briefly, looking beyond the NDC, Fiji has worked on developing a lot of these frameworks that are relating to mangroves. But I would just like to highlight, I think one of the challenges that we faced in Fiji and also in a lot of the Pacific Islands is that different ministries have different mandates that kind of focus on mangroves. So for Fiji, we have the Ministry of Environment that manages the mangrove, but then we have the Ministry of Forestry, also have a different component in terms of the governance of the mangrove areas. The mangrove area is state-owned, and then we have a different ministry that is responsible for the state-owned the land. So continuing from panelists is that collaboration between the ministries is very important. Building the partnership and the capacity for the ministry to have an understanding of how to manage the mangrove areas. But I think we also lack engaging our indigenous people in developing this framework, and I think that is something the Fiji government is really focusing on, also in this COP29, trying to bring indigenous people, indigenous knowledge in developing national frameworks, especially for the management of our mangrove areas. Yeah? So that's just briefly from Fiji. Thanks.
Yeah, no, thank you. This sort of, again, this multi-level governance aspect of both horizontal coordination, which we know isn't easy. We speak different languages often and have different priorities, but it's absolutely essential. And then this vertical coordination, really bringing in the bottom up and actual communities and indigenous peoples and users and producers. So not easy, but essential especially for ecosystems like this. Diego.
First, I'm sure that we need to make the financing reach the subnational level, because we are the front line with local communities. So sometimes we look for financing, but we don't have this straight line, very well conducted, very well established within the national level, the national government and the city government. For example, one of the coastal cities of São Paulo in the last February during the Carnival holidays suffered one of strong mudslide with more than 2,000 hectares of mudslides, 65 people victims. This represents loss and damage. So how we as a subnational, as a state government can reach financing like that? And mangroves is the same. We have to establish a mechanism of financing directly with the state level to make this capacity building, like Panama said, and then to trying to make this resilience with the local communities. And the second point is working planning. As my colleague here, Marina, works for the Secretariat for Environment in São Paulo State. So she is responsible for the adaptation and resilience state plan. And this is a mechanism, a tool for us that manage protected areas to, as a conclusion as a convergence of all the efforts in the management of the areas, the looking for the local people, and make this a plan in the state.
Great. So again, finance and coordination. Okay. Great. So we do have time for questions. We have a full house. So let's please interact. If you have any questions for any of the panelists, if Pak Daniel is still online, maybe he could also come on the screen for questions for him. Don't be shy and just say who you are, and let's interact a bit. Okay, yes, our colleague from JICA, breaking the ice. Thanks.
Thank you. So thank you very much. Yeah, so informative, informative presentation from each country. And sorry, I'm just Sakaguchi from JECA. And thank you, Iravan, for saying also the collaboration. And I have a question. So what the comment? So I know the Indonesian situation. I mean, in terms of the contribution to NDC, the mangrove restoration and the conservation, and yeah. So Indonesia, I know that. So already include the carbon stock or the carbon sequestration in the NDC, the inventory, and including the soil carbons. That it is very important as the blue carbons. And also they are estimating different habitats also. And such a scientific and also the detailed evaluation or the estimation of the carbon into the NDC is very important, I think. I think still many countries not yet including such a estimation, including also the exact estimation of the soil carbon in the NDCs. That is could be an incentive for to achieve the NDC, and because of the much higher carbon in mangrove ecosystems. I think I don't know. How many countries are already included NDC and to achieve the NDC?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know Indonesia already.
Yeah, thank you, Sakaguchi. Yeah, it is really important to include all of this carbon pool. Yeah, carbon pool within the NDCs. In terms of inventory, yeah, we already start with first is above ground, below ground, soil now, because they are this contain more carbon than the upper part. So that's why in Indonesia we try to include all of this carbon pool within our inventory report and BUR and BTR. And we are happy because we are backed up by the scientists, by Daniel is in there, CIFOR is in there. So we have a lot of data that we can use to enhance or to improve the data. And one more thing that I forgot that, yeah, we need data and information about this mangrove. Yeah, it is really crucial for us because, yeah, if you have a good data set, so you can come up with the policy and policy and strategy that are also implementable in the field. Yeah, thank you.
Just before we ask this, does anyone have anything else to complement? Gabriela? Yeah.
Yes, well, in Panama case, like as you mentioned, we are a natural thinker. So in our main objective, so in our NDC is like to preserve the things that obviously make us a carbon negative country, that are our forest, and we want to preserve that. Like actually, a huge part of our forests are protected areas in Panama. And well, now with the mangrove, we also want to preserve them because we know how important they are in this process of carbon sinking. So yeah, we actually do have a big commitment to protect these areas in our country. Yes.
Hi.
So yeah, we had a question right in front here.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, yeah, just because, but I don't know who was first. Go ahead.
Okay,
yes.
sorry.
Good.
My name is Monique. I'm also from Brazil. Nice to meet you, Pedro. Let's exchange more. Currently, we work with communities, and everyone has a role to play, right? How to transform global decisions in action. Can you guys give one example, tangible, what the community can do in practice and provide us some inspirational for action? Thank you.
I think local fishermen they do sustainable fishing, and the oyster collectors in the south region of São Paulo state, for example, they already do sustainable use of the mangroves, and I think we need to get more strong financing for that, and I hope they can make a group of representatives during the NDC commitments, during the NDC meetings within the state and the government, the national government. So it's not only the state, the technicians from the state or from the city government. We need to take those representatives from those communities and work together and bring us to the team, looking to get voice space for them to explain at the national level how they see the NDC, how they see their commitments, their local commitments from the NDC or with the NDC. So I think that's it's a case of representation with the local leaders.
Yes, just very briefly, I think for as I've mentioned, the engagement of our indigenous people to try and achieve some of these global commitments. So when we look at an example of SDG trying to commit on the SDG global commitment, it's always very difficult for us to report back on our progress because we can progress on the target level, but at the indicator set is not indicators that reflect on the work that we are doing, especially at the community level. So this is something that we have found difficult in reporting back on SDGs and other global commitments. So we're trying to nationalize some of these indicators, how we can reflect on what the work that has been done at the community level to try and achieve these global commitments. Yeah, just briefly, thanks.
So, well, like I feel with the local communities, it is obviously like teamwork because, for example, in Panama, like sometimes it's very difficult to get to people in local communities. Like we as a government or as people that are involved in this climate change world, like we have to change our language and explain them in a way that they can really understand why it is important to protect the forest, why it is important for them to protect the mangrove, and obviously also by our side, we have to create strong frameworks to in this preservation. But yeah, I think it's a teamwork with the local communities and us. Like we do support a lot in our local governments, like in the municipal areas and stuff. Like we are always are doing like capacity buildings and everything, going to schools and stuff, so that they can be a little bit more aware of what is happening, because sometimes investors from other countries come and go to their areas and tell them like, oh, this project will be so good for you, and they are like destroying all the area, but they don't know how to defend themselves because they are not aware of what is happening. So
Okay.
yes.
That's great. I'm just getting a message that I think Puck Daniel might want to intervene here too. Is he still online? Yes? Okay.
Yes,
There
yes,
he is. Okay. We see you perfectly.
Hey, sorry everybody for being late and not physically with you, but I understand this is very interesting and popular spot there in the NDC. I was there last week, but unfortunately I should shift somewhere else. I just want to comment on the issue of soil carbon, if I may.
Please.
Yeah, well, I think the importance of soil carbon to be recorded is there, and surely country can start with the IPCC guideline, be it tier 1 or something like default values. That's somewhere that you can start with. But if knowledge and capacity is available, I would suggest everybody to do that for project level, because as somebody mentioned in the question, I think it was Noriaki, it's important that the local people can get that and help by the local whatever research institution, so that they have the numbers themselves to be defended whenever projects are going to be established or developed on their sites. So I think it's very important that they have this kind of bargaining position in terms of what they do, especially when you are dealing with aquaculture, for example, soil excavation will affect the storage of carbon very drastically if you don't do it well. So that's my comment and suggestion.
That's great. And we have this leading scientific expert here. So any other countries that are looking for advice, call Pak Daniel, right? He's available. He's smiling. So, okay. Very good. So we do have a couple other questions. We probably won't be able to answer them, but I'd like for you to be able to at least express the questions. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. Nick Haslam from ASI in the UK. My question is around measuring the economic value of mangroves and factoring that value into national or subnational economic and fiscal planning, via national capital accounting and other measures, not just the carbon value, but the wider value of economic resilience and your experience with that, really, and how your countries are addressing that value.
Financial aspect, and maybe this other question here.
Yeah, so Kim Gabrieli from Worldview International Foundations. We are one of the top 3 leading mangrove planting organizations in the world. Just wanted to express to Gabriela a big thank you for the work Panama is doing, because they have actually done something that is the biggest challenge we face now. There is the perfect policy trap. We don't get access to land because everybody's waiting for regulations. Your minister, Juan Carlos Navarro, he said, okay, we have a moratorium for half a year because of new regulations. We are going to enter into a contract with Worldview for 2,000 hectares, so we can start doing that, and then, of course, we can adapt to the new regulations coming. If not, we're going to wait another half a year, 1 year. Indonesia has sent the same challenge. So thank you so much for taking a lead on this. Very much appreciated. We need to get from the NDCs down to action, and that is what the mangrove breakthrough is about.
That's indeed. Yeah, that's correct. So maybe, I know Pak Irawan, I don't know if you want to try to take the finance question, because Indonesia indeed has some interesting finance experience with mangrove. Yeah.
Yeah, for the mangrove one, that Indonesia, we have a special agencies for environmental funds. This agency is managed by 3 ministers right now. It's Minister of Environment and Forestry, Ministry of Finance, and Planning Agency. So all of the monies or the donor that coming from outside should be in that kind of agency. And this agency, because they're Minister of Finance, so they're really strict with that one. So then they distribute it to all of the area. In terms of mangrove valuing the economy of the mangrove, there are a number of activities running now in Indonesia. The first one is if related to carbon, we have a non-carbon benefits from the mangroves. Yeah, and this one is non-carbon benefits. It's not only counting the carbons, but also by the biodiversity and environmental services coming from this kind of, especially for mangroves. Yeah. So there are a number of activities that are in there. But the numbers, how many? How to valuing the mangrove in one part, because there are different parts, isn't it? In the area that they are managed by local people. So the numbers are going to different bit area that managed by the company or something like that. So, but you come up with that one. We are now, I'm introducing now, because we call ecosystem-based adaptation, we try to use non-carbon benefits. So the valuing of mangrove on biodiversity also we can integrate it to right now with carbon trading and something like that. Yeah, we try to interlinking with this kind of activities.
Yeah, no, that's excellent. This quantification of these non-carbon benefits, which is pretty complex, as we see in the Global Goal on Adaptation Indicators discussion, for example. So with this, let's give a big round of applause to our panelists. This has been such a rich discussion. You can stay here because I think there's nowhere for you to sit anymore. So just stay where you are. And I think this again is such a rich, sharing of experiences, and it's so all about partnerships and sharing. And with that, I would like to call on and thank the NDC Partnership for having us here, and call on Amanda McKee, the Director for Knowledge and Learning with the NDC Partnership Support Unit, to provide some closing remarks for today's event.
Great.
Amanda.
Thank you so much. And well, thank you to all of our partners and countries today for joining us for this really critical event. The NDC Partnership is a proud member of the Mangrove Breakthrough NDC Task Force, and I really wanted to just conclude this event by linking this back to some of the things that I heard in the panel today. And the first one is really the critical opportunity that we have to recognize blue carbon ecosystems in countries' NDCs 3.0, both to catalyze mangrove conservation, but also to contribute to important climate mitigation and adaptation targets. One of the key missing pieces that we've really seen in this discussion is access to finance that's needed to action some of these critical opportunities. If we look at mangrove restoration and protection, it's drastically underfunded compared to the benefits that mangroves provide, receiving only 1% of climate finance. And this is echoed in what we see through the NDC partnership. So we respond to our countries through requests for support that they bring. 91% of the countries who've requested support through the partnership have requested some sort of request on finance. It's the most frequently requested type of support that we receive. And if we look specifically at finance for blue carbon, it's one of the most under-supported areas. So there's a critical opportunity for partners in the room to bring increased support here, and I really wanted to recognize that. To help bridge part of this gap between financiers and developing countries, the partnership launched a climate investment planning and mobilization framework last year at COP together with the GCF. And the aim of this framework is to help establish a shared understanding between countries and financiers on the steps that are needed to unlock and optimize climate finance. And we quickly recognized both the importance of this type of framework, but that we really need to tailor it to some of these unique conversations that we've been having. And so together with the Pew Charitable Trusts, we're adding a supplement to the framework specifically on blue carbon ecosystems investment planning. And so some of the specific opportunities for governments to unlock blue carbon ecosystem financing are detailed in the supplement, and this includes gathering data on coastal ecosystems to design the right financial instruments, implementing policies and management plans that define rights and jurisdictions, identifying and communicating some of these NDC implementation costs, but also implementing stable policies to demonstrate to investors or financing bodies that the country does not pose a financial risk in this type of investment. So really the technical expertise and experience of our partners is core to everything that the NDC partnership does. It's what really defines our collective impact. And I just wanted to conclude say that we really look forward to this continued collaboration to ensure our country members can integrate and really action this important topic in their NDCs 3.0. Thank you.